Have you ever felt that huge burst of energy to achieve something big? Maybe, finally mastering a skill or launching that project you keep thinking about, or honestly, sometimes just getting out of bed on time consistently.
Oh, absolutely. We all know that feeling that this is it moment.
Right. But then, almost as fast as it comes, it just kind of fizzles out,
Yeah. And
vanishes.
it's such a common cycle, isn't it? And really frustrating. We tend to wait around for inspiration like it's going to magically appear.
And when it doesn't, we feel stuck.
Ugh,
Or maybe worse, like we've failed somehow.
exactly.
And that really brings us straight to the heart of today's deep dive. Consistency. But we're not talking about some super rigid, boring discipline here.
No, not at all. Think of it more like a quiet superpower.
Yeah, superpower. Our source material, it puts it perfectly. The one habit that builds every other habit.
It really is foundational. So this deep dive, it's tailored specifically for you, drawing from a really interesting conversation over on the English Leap podcast.
That's from the Speak English with Class YouTube channel. We zoomed in on their episode about force yourself to be consistent.
And our mission today is basically to pull out the best insights, the actionable tips, and those, crucial mindset shifts.
The stuff that can help you build this habit,
Yeah.
especially on those days where you really don't feel like it.
We've all been there.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So the first big idea, maybe the most important one from the source, is about motivation itself. We treat it like, I don't know, magical weather, hoping it just shows up.
Right, but the source highlights this huge contrast, between relying on a feeling versus creating a process.
A process, like a system.
Exactly. They called motivation like Wi-Fi in the desert, unreliable and frustrating, which is, well, pretty accurate.
Huh. Yeah, I can relate to that. Motivation often comes from novelty, right?
Huh.
Something new is exciting for a bit.
For a bit, yeah. Studies even show that initial buzz for a new goal, it often peaks really fast, like in the first few days, and then drops off unless there's a system.
So what really works, according to the source, is building these systems, simple routines that just run.
Run on autopilot. That's the key phrase they use.
Okay, autopilot. So if motivation is this flaky friend,
Yeah.
how do we actually build these systems? How do we get from wanting a routine to just having one?
Well, the examples they gave were so simple, almost obvious when you think about it, like brushing your teeth.
Right. You don't wake up and have a big debate about it.
No, you just do it. And for one of the podcast hosts, it was setting a specific time to shadow English podcasts every morning during breakfast. Just 10 minutes.
And that became automatic.
Totally automatic. No internal negotiation needed. Breakfast meant hitting play. Simple as that.
Ah, see, that's where the magic is, getting rid of that internal back and forth. Okay, so for you listening, here's a little challenge. Think about one tiny, consistent action. Maybe just saying, like 2 or 3 sentences out loud every single day,
Even when you're tired.
especially when you're tired.
Yeah.
The goal isn't waiting for the mood, it's just building the muscle.
Speaking of muscles, that leads nicely into the second big point. Discipline.
Right, it's not like you can just flick a switch and boom, you're disciplined.
Not at all. The source really emphasizes that you grow it slowly, like a muscle, through repetition or reps, as they put it.
So each time you show up, even when you don't want to, that's like doing a rep for your discipline muscle.
Exactly. It's not just about the task itself. It's the act of showing up that builds the discipline. It creates this positive feedback loop.
And they said it rewires identity. What does that actually mean?
Well, it means you slowly stop seeing yourself as someone trying to do the thing, and you start becoming someone who just does the thing. It's a shift in who you believe you are.
Okay, wow. That's pretty deep. Becoming that person who just gets stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And they shared some great personal examples.
Yeah, like waking up 30 minutes early to practice speaking, even sounding half asleep.
Or giving up the endless scrolling at night to prep podcast notes instead. And they admitted it was hard at first. It hurt, they said. But after a few weeks, they didn't even miss the scrolling.
It shows it wasn't some sudden heroic effort. It was small, consistent choices adding up over time. That's how the identity shift happens.
Right. From I'm trying to, I just do. Okay, so for you listening, here's a micro tip. Find your weak spot in the day, maybe late evening, after lunch.
Yeah, whenever you usually feel that dip.
And just commit to one tiny English task then, 5 minutes. That's your discipline, Jim. Just show up.
Exactly. Nail that tiny habit first, then think about leveling up later. Just get the reps in.
Okay, so we've got systems over motivation and discipline as a muscle. Now, how do we make this consistency thing feel, well, easier? almost effortless.
This is where habit linking comes in. Our source called it a kind of secret weapon.
Habit linking. So tying the new habit to something you already do automatically.
Precisely. It's genius because it bypasses that daily decision-making fatigue. That should I, shouldn't I debate.
Ah, okay. Like tying your shoelaces before you go for a run. It just signals what's next.
Exactly. Your brain connects the new action to an existing cue. So consistency no longer depends on your willpower. It just happens. It becomes automated.
That sounds brilliant, but sometimes feels harder in practice. What were some concrete examples they shared?
It's really practical ones. One person said, after I brew my morning tea, I grab my notebook and write one English sentence. The tea was the trigger.
Simple. The tea happens anyway.
Right. Another was, every time I take a walk, I listen to an English podcast, even just for 5 minutes. The walk itself triggered the listening habit.
So the existing routine pulls the new habit along.
Clever.
Okay, listener challenge time. Pick one thing you already do without thinking. Brushing teeth, making coffee, turning off your alarm,
Anything automatic.
and attach just 5 minutes of English practice to it. Make it tiny, make it easy, but make it linked.
That link is the crucial part.
Now this next point. That might feel a bit counterintuitive, especially today, with everything needing to look exciting. But it's about embracing the boring part.
Yeah. It's interesting how we often expect progress to be like dramatic or flashy.
It's
There's Instagrammable, right?
totally. But the source argues that real, solid progress is often found in the repetitive stuff, the almost dull stuff.
It builds the deep roots. It's not always exciting on the surface.
It makes me think of exercise again. Everyone wants the training montage, but reality is just showing up for the same exercises day after day. It's quiet.
It is. And for the hosts learning English, it wasn't about intense movie montage moments. It was things like repeating phrases, listening to the same podcast twice, writing the same word 10 times.
Like watering a plant, they said. You don't see it grow right away, but stop showing up and you'll definitely notice.
That's such a great analogy. Consistency doesn't always feel like a breakthrough, but that quiet showing up is what builds the foundation.
So if your practice feels a bit plain sometimes, don't get discouraged.
Actually, that might be a good sign. It means it's becoming normal, part of the routine, not just a novelty.
Okay, so here's a tip for you listening. Start tracking what they called your boring wins. Little things. Spoke for 3 minutes. Read one paragraph. Listened while cooking.
Write them down. Those small actions seem minor, but together, that's how fluency gets built, quietly.
So true. Okay, to help keep those boring wins adding up day after day, we need something the host called micro rules.
Oh, yes. The personal secret weapons against procrastination.
Secret weapons, I like that. So what are they exactly?
Well, the core idea is about removing decision fatigue, right? So micro rules are like little contracts you make with yourself.
Contracts. So
Yeah, they basically make the decision for you in advance. They take the thinking out of staying consistent and protect you from distractions. When the moment arrives, you don't debate, you just follow the rule.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Removing the friction. What kind of rules did they come up with?
They had some creative ones. One was super simple. No social media until I finished my English journaling.
Ooh, I could use that one.
Right. Another linked it to hobbies. I can only play video games after I write down 5 new English phrases.
Huh. That's brilliant. Did it work?
Apparently, yes. And they even said it helped them learn gaming-related words faster. It's kind of like gamifying your own discipline.
Love it. Okay, challenge for you.
Yeah.
Create your own micro rule. Could be no watching your favorite show without English subtitles, and I have to note down 3 new phrases.
Or maybe no coffee until I've practiced speaking for 60 seconds.
Make it fun, but make it non-negotiable. The less thinking involved, the more likely you are to just do it.
Exactly. Less thinking, more doing.
Okay, but even with systems, discipline reps, habit links, and micro rules, let's be real,
Sure.
some days are just tough.
Absolutely. You're tired, stressed, maybe sick. Life happens.
And that's where this next idea is just crucial. It's the concept of the bare minimum.
Yes. The source put it so well. Bad days are not the enemy. Doing nothing on those days is. That's the key distinction.
So consistency doesn't mean going all out 100% every single day.
Not at all. It means that even on your absolute worst day, you still show up somehow, even if it's tiny. Perfection isn't the goal. Presence is.
Wow, okay. That really reframes things. It becomes less about failure and more about adjusting. I'm not quitting, I'm just adjusting the intensity for today.
Exactly. And the hosts shared their own bare minimums. One person feeling totally burnt out, their minimum was just listen to 2 minutes of English audio while brushing my teeth.
2 minutes, that's it.
That was it. The other person's was just reading one sentence out loud before bed, no matter how late, tiny actions.
But it kept the chain going.
Yeah.
Right? It kept the habit alive, reinforced the identity.
Precisely. Even that tiny action signals to your brain, I'm still in this, I'm still committed. It stops the momentum from breaking completely.
Okay, so here's the practical takeaway for you. Plan for the hard days before they hit. Decide your bare minimum now.
Make it ridiculously small. Something you can manage even if you're half asleep.
Because when those tough days inevitably arrive, that bare minimum is your lifeline. It keeps the fire lit, however small.
Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, refusing to completely drop the ball.
Which brings us beautifully to the final point, maybe the ultimate goal here. Consistency becomes easy when it becomes your identity.
This is where it all kind of comes together, isn't it? It shifts the entire internal landscape.
How so? What's the mechanism there?
Well, it moves beyond forcing yourself. You're not waking up thinking, oh, what do I have to do today? Instead, it's just, this is who I am. This is what I do.
It's a fundamental shift in your self-concept.
Exactly. A paradigm shift, really.
And the host said this genuinely changed everything for them. One shared, I don't write podcast scripts every week because I force myself anymore. I do it because I'm someone who creates.
See? It's just part of their being now.
And instead of saying, I'm trying to read more, you shift your internal language to, I'm a reader.
Or I'm learning English becomes I'm an English speaker still improving. That framing makes a huge difference.
It removes that constant internal negotiation, that feeling of efforting all the time.
It really does. The identity drives the action rather than the other way around.
Okay, so final challenge for you listening. Start telling yourself the story you want to live. Say it out loud. Write it down. I'm the kind of person who practices English every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
And when life gets messy, distractions, laziness, doubt creep in.
Come back to that identity. Not your feelings in the moment, but who you've decided to be.
You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be the kind of person who keeps showing up.
That's how consistency becomes sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Not through force, but through becoming.
Absolutely. Quietly, daily, becoming that person.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's quickly unpack some key vocabulary from the original discussion, just to help lock these ideas in.
Good idea. First up was glamorous, which means something looks really exciting or fancy, but maybe only from the outside.
Like, working on a film set seemed glamorous, but actually, it was just long hours and hard work.
Exactly. Then, sneaks up on you. This is when something happens kind of slowly, quietly, and then suddenly, bam, it's there.
Like, that deadline really sneak up on me.
Autopilot. Doing something automatically, without conscious thought.
I drove home on autopilot, barely remembering the journey.
Then, to negotiate with yourself, that internal debate about whether or not to do something.
I kept negotiating with myself about getting up for that early workout. We've all been there.
Definitely. Flip a switch, changing something instantly.
You can't just flip a switch and suddenly be motivated.
Yeah.
Needs that consistency piece.
Right. A trigger in habit building. Is that cue, that little action that kicks off the habit?
My morning coffee is the trigger for my 5-minute journaling habit.
Gamifying. Making a task feel more like a game, often to make it more fun or rewarding.
He gamified his studying by setting points targets for each chapter.
Bare minimum. The absolute smallest amount you can do that still counts as progress.
On really busy days, my bare minimum is reading 1 page of my book. Keeps the streak alive.
And finally, to show up for yourself. This means keeping your promises to yourself, doing what you said you'd do, even when it's tough or no one's watching.
Even though I was tired, I did my 10 minutes of practice. I showed up for myself today. Love that one.
It's powerful.
Wow, okay, what a deep dive that was. We've covered a lot, from why motivation is, well, flaky.
To how systems, discipline, linking, micro rules, and the bare minimum all work together.
And ultimately, how consistency becomes easiest when it's part of who you are, your identity. It's not about drama, just quiet, genuine, daily showing up.
And speaking of showing up, honestly, thank you for showing up today. Just listening to this, engaging with these ideas, that's a consistent action right there.
That's true. You didn't wait for the perfect mood to learn something new. You pressed play. You showed up.
So, building on that identity idea, if consistency becomes easy when it's who you are, here's a final thought to chew on.
What else in your life might be waiting to become effortless? Simply by you deciding to be that person, instead of just trying to be that person.
Think about one area, Where could you stop trying and just start being?
Mm, powerful question. Now, to help you really cement all this and keep that consistency going, the original English Leap podcast, folks, actually put together a free PDF guide for this topic.
Yeah, it's got the transcript, some grammar points, comprehension questions, and even reflection prompts to help you apply it all.
You'll find the download link for that right there in the description. Definitely worth grabbing to help you stay on track.
Absolutely. Keep going, keep practicing, keep becoming.
And keep showing up for yourself. You've totally got this.